judgment there, even though they claim that there was no judgment. There was definitely judgment. And you see that kind of stuff happen on the left today now, where, like, you can't question the narrative.
Yeah, you mentioned in the article.
Yeah, you have to just go along with whatever's happening, and you have to just, if somebody steps out of line, all of a sudden there's judgment. And I think that they go a bit further. I feel like Christians, as they have come into the 2000s, they've really gone down, because, like, you used to hear stories about them, like, murdering people. And I mean, like, if you go back to the freaking AIDS crisis, like, they were burning crosses in front of I don't even remember her name, which is bad for me as a gay man, but there was a nurse who was staying with gay men in their hospitals as they died of AIDS, right? And the Ku Klux Klan actually went to her freaking house and burned crosses in her yard.
Is that so?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a story that most people don't know about. Even in the gay community, it's really sad. But, like, so there's been stories like that for, Christians coming in contact with LGBT people, and really showing that while they might say that they all love, no, that's not true. They do hate. And they show that through their actions. They show that through their words. And I think that as time has gone on, Christians have really mellowed out. They don't really do that anymore. I've actually talked to, like, as a gay man, openly gay man, I've talked to people at the Westboro Baptist Church, and, like, we've just been chill. Like, don't agree with them, but, I mean, we can have a civil conversation.
Well, what do you make of that? Do you think Christians have just been ground down and beaten down so much, or they're just like, whatever, man, what the fuck you guys just doing?
I think that partially maybe the case. I think that a lot of this wokeness has come into the church, and it's really been turned in on itself, and, like, they've really changed what the church is supposed to be and what the church is, to be more inclusive in a specific way. If we're talking, like, that's a whole other subject,
right,
by the way.
Right.
Like,
well, that's even worse news, because if apathy, at least you could try to motivate Christians, but if it's been infestation with wokeness, it's like, oh man,
I've gone
back from that.
One of the rallies that I've gone to was actually a rally was an LGBT, like, little pride thing, and there was a drag show, family-friendly drag show, and I believe that was the pride show. That was the pride event that I went to that probably had the most churches at it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was in Wichita.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, like, churches have really changed, and obviously not all churches. There are still some churches that aren't like that, but it's definitely gone. It's everywhere. It's in schools, it's in churches, it's in big business and big pharma. It's,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think Christians play a huge role in this culture war, and right now they've just given up. They've basically given up, and they've given up a ton of ground that's gonna be hard to come back from, and they're so afraid of their own shadow, and it's just, I don't know, they've been really weak and pathetic is what I've seen.
So, and it's been really interesting, however, to watch who is coming to Christianity, because it's, the cool kids, basically, I'd like to say. The kids who were the rebels in schools when I was back in school are now the ones who are going, again, they're going against the culture, and going against the culture means going into Christianity, going into living a normal life. Like, it's been a really interesting shift for my generation as somebody who is younger.
That is really interesting. So are you saying that these people that are going into Christianity as like a kind of like a counterculture move, these aren't like what would be like left-leaning people? These are just like,
These would have been the like, I guess if you would have seen the Breakfast Club.
Mhm.
You know, there was the nerd, the basket case, the jock, the princess, the criminal. The jock and the princess were the culture, right? They were, and then like the other three, they kind of were a little bit against the culture in a sort of way. Those are kind of the people, and maybe not. Some of the nerds are, you know, not quite there. I don't think some of them, like that I've written about, have just fully gone into the left. But I think I would consider myself more of a nerd. I've definitely strayed away from that and gone more into the Christian lifestyle. I'm not Christian specifically, but I do believe, and I've gone against the culture.
Mm-hmm. So then, are you saying that like that it's more like going to Christianity is seen as more rebellious?
Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting.
For sure.
That's interesting. All right. So going into the next one here. So then you your next section, you talk about the media, and you know, I thought this was really interesting because you dive into some of the numbers specifically on the of the political affiliation of the reporters.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, you mentioned in here that there seems to be some sort of like you know, the differences in the way that the left and the right view the reporters that are there in terms of how they react to them, and maybe having more suspicion and a willingness to either talk or not talk to reporters. What do you make of that?
I just, you know, make of that once bitten, twice shy for Republicans. So like what I say in the article is that people on the right tend to be more cautious about speaking to reporters. They tend to dislike reporters. They don't want really anything to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas people on the left, they're happy to speak to them. They don't feel like they're going to be misrepresented in any way. And so they are just absolutely fine with talking to them. And, you know, it comes down to like, who does the media tend to represent in a positive light?
Mm-hmm.
It's not Republicans.
Right, yeah, and so that goes into like what you're talking about, you know, then the next paragraph here, you give these numbers here of a study, and it says that it was found that, you know, 58.5% of journalists claim to lean left of center, with 37% of journalists claiming to be moderates, and only 4.4% claimed to lean right of center, including 3.94% who claimed they were only, quote, somewhat conservative.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? With those results there?
It doesn't really surprise me. So when there's an interesting study that looked at people's political views based on what they did for a living. And what they found was that in certain careers, you're going to find more liberals, and in other careers, you're going to find more conservatives. Mm-hmm. When it comes to things that involve the media, you're going to find more liberals. And so when it comes to the news, that of course would be the case here. You're going to find a lot more left-leaning biases, and that's why when you go and people start hearing about the news and they're like, oh, it's just all propaganda, well, it's because it's coming from a leftist perspective. Mm-hmm. And when the majority of the news is this one way, that's what you're hearing all the time, and so you're of course going to see it as propaganda, and you're not going to trust anybody in that field. And that just because, you know, the news is mostly liberal does not necessarily mean that it's completely liberal. Again, what was it, 4.4% said that they were more on the conservative side, and I'd be in that moderately conservative. Like, I definitely know I'm conservative for sure. If you read my work, you know I'm conservative. Mm-hmm. But I definitely would not claim to be on the far right by any means. But it's just one of those things where people on the left are going to be more interested in being a journalist, and so there's going to be more of them.
Well, that's the thing. So like, yeah, these jobs will self-select for the people that go into them. So what do you think it is about journalism that draws people that are left wing, and I guess conversely, like, what is it about journalism that keeps people on the right from wanting to be more, I don't know, involved in journalism?
Yeah, so people on the left tend to be more involved in things that affect culture. They tend to be more involved in artistic stuff. That's where their passions lie, and that's, I guess that's just when you lean more on the left, you're going to see things through a different perspective with the career that you choose. And same thing on the right. The people on the right, they're going to choose things that are probably going to be more labor intensive. They're probably going to be more interested in like day labor jobs that are like, driving trucks or running a business, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Well, when I hear that, then I think like, the right has no one to blame but themselves. I mean, they need to, not sit around and complain about how there's not enough, coverage for them and then things aren't fair when they could go and start to do it themselves. I get that there are certain things that they'd be more drawn to, but it's like, come on, that, you got to kind of step up a little bit if you see an issue and you want to cover it or you want to change things. You got to do that. You can't just sit there and say, well, it's more of a left lane thing, so I guess I'm going to be subjected to their propaganda.
Well, and agree to a point. So